me, you know. He's happy as can be, you know. He loves me. Yes, he's in love with me, and I feel fine, so fine. He buys me pretty things, you know. He buys me diamond rings, you know. He does so. Yes, he's in love with me, and I feel fine, so fine.
Yesterday, all my troubles seem so far away.
When Alma's untimely death cut her career tragically short, all showbiz paid its respects. Today, her memory lingers. Lionel Blair was one of her very close friends.
She's still in my mind every single day. Anything funny that happens, or a new star that comes along, or a new trend that comes along, Alma and I would be the first on the phone. Did you see so-and-so? Or guess what I did last night? Or usually we do it together. But she was that sort of girl. Funny, the greatest sense of humour.
I don't know, he wouldn't say.
She was just 34 when in 1966 cancer deprived us of Britain's most successful female hit parade artist, with a string of more than 20 hits throughout the 50s and into the 60s. Her birth certificate records her as Alma Cogan, born in Whitechapel, East London. She was born to be a star, and just 15 was in the chorus of a London musical, High Button Shoes, with a young Audrey Hepburn. Alma enjoyed the encouragement of her parents. Mark and Fanny pushed her into the showbiz world, selling the family haberdasher shop to buy a flat in Kensington High Street when the West End beckoned.
Hanging on the breeze to dry.
That time she was singing with the band at the Cumberland Hotel in near Marble Arch, and I enjoyed her work hugely. She was absolutely wonderful. She captivated us all.
Others were captivated, and after Alma sent BBC Radio a tape, she was featured on Take It From Here alongside June Whitfield and Jimmy Edwards.
And this is what Alma always did. She used to go to the side of the stage and perhaps cover her mouth with her hand and scream out, "What do you want?" and that sort of thing. And she was always Mrs. Glum, this mystical character who actually had no words.
Trees everywhere with blossoms in their hair, and Mother Nature wears her newest gown. What I'd give once more to live right outside.
But just as Alma was making a name for herself, her father died, leaving her to support her mother and the rest of her family, and to steer her own course, taking control of her career. Radio provided another break when Alma first heard pianist Stan Foster play.
She said afterwards she liked my playing. She thought, when I can afford a full-time accompanist, I'm going to make it him, sort of thing. Well, funnily enough, about 4 weeks after that, she was one of the featured artists with Cyril Stapleton on the same show. And that's how we first met. And then she told me, "You're going to be my pianist." And three weeks later, I think I was. And she was all little tiny name at the bottom of the bill. She generally had her own way, and generally she was right.
I've got the bell.
For Alma and Stan, it marked the start of a lifelong partnership.
And he's sailing somewhere on the sea. I got the bell-bottom blues.
Bell-Bottom Blues was her first hit. Others soon followed.
Coming back to me.
She had the most marvellous singing voice. She was just as at home singing I've Got the Bell-Bottom Blues because my sweetie's in the Navy as she was with Noel Coward's If Love Were All, which is the most beautiful ballad.
If love were all, I should be lonely. You lovable dreamboat.
Within a few months of teaming up with Stan Foster, Alma's popularity took off. Dreamboat became a massive hit record and her first #1. She was just 23 years old.
7 seas with you, even if you told me to go and paddle my own canoe. I'd follow you, darling.
over the moon. She was definitely, we saw it, it started to climb a bit, as I remember, and then suddenly it just went walloped on top.
Hit quickly followed hit, and she was rarely out of the charts. She was known as the girl with the giggle in her voice and became the nation's most popular female singer.
Maybe I'm raving about when you're shaving and you're stropping up your razor for the day. I've got a notion, it ain't devotion, makes you eye me in that very funny way.
You can never do a tango with an Eskimo. No, no, no. Oh dear, no. If you do, you'll get the breeze up and you'll end up with the freeze up. You must never do a tango with an Eskimo.
When I was oh so very small, my mother used to tell me all the little things she thought a daughter needed. She used to tell me what to do, and furthermore, what not to do, and said that I had got to do as she did. I wonder if she was I shall see for myself tonight. At 8:30 by the sycamore tree. I'll be there, wait and see, 'cause I've got a date by the sycamore tree with someone I adore.
She could always sing these novelty songs, and people expected that from her, really. But she could sing some very, very good bluesy type numbers, middle of the road songs, middle of the road jazz and that sort of thing. She loved Ella Fitzgerald.
And still those little things remain that bring me happiness or pain. A cigarette that bears the lipstick's traces, an airline ticket to romantic places, and still my heart has wings,
20 tiny fingers.
Alma was one of the first to realise that frequent television appearances were the key to fame, and she made the most of the new medium. In fact, she loved the cameras full stop, making sure of every photo opportunity.
This one's got a big bald spot, exactly like his pop, 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 pop. Why do fools fall in love? Why do birds sing so gay? And lovers wait the break of day. Why do they fall in love? Fools fall in love. Why do birds sing so gay? And lovers wait the break of day. Why do they fall in love?
She loved her career, and she loved what she did, and when a new song came out, if the record came out, and if she was voted Record Mirror Star of the Month or whatever, she loved all that. It could have been the Oscar as far as she was concerned. She was thrilled with her success.
Can't be ashamed. I know of a fool you see, for that a fool is me. Tell me why.
Lucky lips are always kissing, lucky lips are never blue. Lucky lips will always find a pair of lips that will be true. I don't need a party clover.
She'd always do anything like opening this or opening that, or appearing here, appearing there, if it was going to further her career.
Well, I always knew I'd be crazy for you. But how'd I know that you thrilled me so?
Sugar in the morning, sugar in the evening, sugar at supper time. I mean my little sugar, and loves me all the time. Come on, everyone. Well, we could touch the stars way up in the blue. If you would only say, my darling, I love you. Heaven waits for those who stand in line.
Alma was constantly on the telly. She always enjoyed the attention, even when sending herself up in a flouncy dress on the Benny Hill show.
Well, rhythm group, yeah.
But dear Miss Cogan, won't you advise us what can we do? We've tried Convent Garden, tried Sadler's Wells, we've sung to the windmill queue.
I practice in the morning, practice in the evening, practice at supper time. When you are a singer, you practice all the time. I'm singing in the kitchen, singing in the hallway, singing on the garden path. Tomorrow at 8:30, I'll be singing in my bath.
By the end of the decade, Alma was a major star. She loved everything about show business and was eager to shine her light on other young hopefuls.
She was a very generous performer, and she would encourage new artists, and she would have had young, newer performers on her shows, and always encourage them and give them the limelight.
Eddie Gresham warmly remembers her encouragement.
He decided that my name was going to be Eddie Sands, and so from that next day I changed my name to Eddie Sands, and Alma helped me quite a lot with the career by allowing me to be billed as Alma Cogan's teenage protege.
Eddie had started out as a fan, and Alma always had time for her fan club.
Hello, everyone. Well, as I'm here to talk about fans, that's exactly what I'm going to do. And I must say they really do play a very important part in my work, and I'm sure all other artists too, because they really do stand by you. And you have such fans as some like I have that come all from miles up north to see you, even when you're playing in London.
She was their number one, and they were her number one. Everything evolved sort of around the fans. It was nice for her now and again to get out the spotlight and relax. We spent, 6 or 7 months in Blackpool at the Opera House, and we found a place on the seashore. It was pretty deserted, and no one used to bother her. And we used to call it Hernando's Hideaway. There used to be a tune then called Hernando's Hideaway.
You will be free to gaze at me.
So she'd go there, and we stayed there 3 or 4 hours, and she could relax and just sunbathe or read or do whatever she likes, and she wasn't going to get bothered. So she liked to be on her own sometimes, but her whole being really was focused on becoming and then being a star.
Cowboy Jimmy Joe.
Her TV appearances were as frequent as her hits, but a new era was dawning. Cowboy Jimmy Jones was her last British success in 1961.
Far away, it's the place to stay.
Hi, Alma, come on over and say hello. Come on. Come say hello.
Is that the way you talk to your guests? Really?
As the 50s slipped into the 60s, Alma attempted to make the transition, but the style which made her so famous during one decade left her looking faintly ridiculous in the next.
She would keep up with every modern trend there was to keep up with. But she would make the trend not outrageous like Madonna would be outrageous. It would be today, but that would suit Alma.
The music scene in Britain was changing rapidly. Lulu and Dusty Springfield were the new stars, but Alma had a thirst for fame and decided to try her luck elsewhere. She wasn't disappointed and enjoyed huge hits in Japan, Germany and Scandinavia, and frequently toured overseas.
As it played the hit parade each night, oh, he just couldn't resist her with her pocket.
The quirky I Couldn't Resist Her Pocket Transistor topped the charts in Japan for over a year.
When she flips that dial.
Japan in those days, I don't know what it is now, but then it was the second biggest record selling country in the world, second only to the USA.
Last year I was there for 6 weeks, and I made a very good tour there. I had a big hit record there. And that one was in English. I've since recorded in Japanese.
Yeah.
For instance, Tell Him I recorded for Japan in Japanese.
How many different languages have you been recording in?
In about 6 or 7, I think.
Her popularity abroad allowed her to break new ground, playing open-air arenas to huge crowds long before the Beatles.
It looked immense, 35 or 38,000 people there, which in those days was a tremendous audience. I mean, had done that sort of thing before. And I thought, what's she going to do? Because the noise they made was terrific when I announced her, and the applause and the yelling and the cheering was something almost frightening. And I thought, what's she going to do? And she came on, she looked at me and she looked at them, went to the front of the stage, and she said in a lovely way she could talk. She said, well, my name's Alma Cogan, what's yours?
I think her biggest disappointment of that time was the recording of Tell Him. I think she recorded 7 versions of Tell Him for different countries, and she seemed to be having more success abroad than she was in England. I think Alma was in a crisis of what to do, whether to move abroad or whether to stay.
Recognising that her career was at its strongest abroad, Alma began to capitalise, recording numerous versions of her songs in different languages. Alma still wanted to be the centre of attention back home. She threw regular showbiz parties at her Kensington flat. She was still the centre of the fame game.
Lovely Sunday night parties, which were legendary. They were absolutely marvellous. Everybody would be there. Sammy Davis Jr., Sinatra, anybody who was in town would be there. Lionel Blair, of course, great personal friend.
You must know that the parties at Alma's house, at their flat, were notorious. I mean, everybody was there. It was just, if you went to an Alma Cogan party, I mean, the people, Cary Grant, Noel Coward, the Beatles, you name them, they were always there. Sammy Davis. Alma and I went to Sammy Davis's first night, and Sammy used to call her the Jewish lady. She was, and he adored her. He absolutely adored her.
Her hectic schedule continued apace. In Las Vegas, she visited her old friend Sammy Davis. Ed Sullivan invited her on his shows twice, and she shone in New York cabaret.
For you, I traveled on when hope was gone to seek that rendezvous. I knew somewhere, sometime, somehow, you'd look at me and I would see that smile. You're smiling now. It might have been in County Down, or in New York, in Gay Paris, or even London town. No more will I go around the world, 'cause I have found my world in you. Such a lot of world to see. We're nearing the same rainbow's end, waiting round.
Turning 30 was no hindrance to Alma, despite the youth of new 60s stars. Another year, another continent. This time TV in Australia.
To sing in the trees, someone to bless me whenever I sleep. Let there be cuckoo, a lark and a dove, but most of all, please, let there be love. Let there be Ella, let there be fame, let there be great songs for singers to sing. Let there be Melbourne and Sydney too, tennis and football and Taronga Park Zoo. Let there be Chanel No. 5 and 7 too, but most of all, please, let there be you. Well, that's...
Back in London, Beatlemania was rife. Alma adopted them and they became frequent guests in her flat in Kensington High Street. Lennon called her Sarah Sequin. To the others, she was Auntie Alma.
She was extremely fond of not only the Beatles' music, but of the Fabulous Four themselves, and I would very often see them at her apartment.
Now he's my boy, and he's got me in a whirl. He's my boy, and I'm telling all the world. But he buys me pretty things, you know, buys me diamond rings, you know, he does. Yeah, he loves me, he loves me, he loves me, and I think I
I was there at the time when Paul McCartney came in. said, I've got this wonderful tune running through my head. I haven't done anything about it, but I haven't finished it. But he went to the piano and he went to... That's it, he said, that's running through my head. So, it was a lovely little melody, that, you know. I said, kind of thought about any words? Oh, no, no. I said, fish and chips. How I'd like to have some fish and chips. That's what I remember him saying. I don't remember saying anything else but fish and chips. And she'd take a Beatles song and record it in an entirely different fashion to the way the Beatles recorded it. 8 days a week, for instance, I think that was on her last LP. She did it in a sort of big band, jazzy sort of style.
Covers of Beatles hits, 8 Days a Week and Help, although well received, failed to chart. The pressures of getting that next hit caused a rift with Stan, although he remained as musical director, working on a new album.
Fill my heart with song.
Now there was a new man in her life, Brian Davis, who shared her Jewish upbringing. It was he who accompanied her on a tour of the emerging northern nightclub circuit.
I long for all I worship and adore. In other words, please be true. In other words, I love.
The strain finally took its toll and she collapsed after 2 shows, complaining of stomach pains. She returned to London for hospital tests, but was released ready to work again with new beau Brian. Despite her illness, she collaborated with Stan on a final song for her new album, Now That I've Found You.
One of those sort of things. But we incorporated that in the record. And you got things, piano players playing there, and the drums play dum 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 dum, that sort of a rhythm, and the guitar players playing all sorts of things, and then every now and again this coming.
I just felt, as a fan and knowing Alma and as a friend, that she wasn't the same person without Stan Foster. And I think that was the big thing towards the end, that she excluded Stan. It wasn't Stan that excluded Alma. She excluded Stan for whatever reason.
The work on the new LP continued. Alma was desperate to recapture her previous success. Unknown to Stan, she recorded with Rolling Stones producer Andrew Lou Goldham. The resulting records were such a radical departure from her normal style that they were never released. Brian took her on a tour of Sweden, where she remained very popular, to promote her new hit single there, Hello Baby. But the grueling schedule caused a further decline in her health. Returning to England, she was rushed to hospital, too ill to complete her final album.
I still believe she didn't know she was terminally ill. Right up to the time she went into the nursing home for the last time. She didn't know then. I'm convinced of that. She didn't know she was dying. unfortunately she was.
Bruce Forsyth and I heard she was really not well. I think she was in the Welbeck Clinic or one of those clinics. And I said to Bruce, why don't we go and see Alma? And I remember we went in to see her, and we came out, and I just burst into tears. I've never seen her look like that. That was a week before she died.
Her secret illness claimed her life. She died of ovarian cancer, aged just 34 years old. Her album remained unfinished. Stan gathered musicians to accompany her previously recorded voice for the last time.
So there we were in the studio. Hear her voice and we're playing. And so actually like accompanying her. It was a bit, it was very sad actually. Everyone in the orchestra felt so sad because there she wasn't with us anymore. And we were accompanying her voice to finish that LP. That's how we did the last track, after she'd gone.
Now it looks as if they're here to stay. Oh, I believe.
Alma's legacy of hits remains unsurpassed by any British female, a lasting testimony to the success of the girl with the giggle in her voice.
I used to be.